Well, for all those keeping tabs on this, the conspiracy theorists were right again. Many have been warning about fluoride for generations. One of those people is Derrick Broze from The Last American Vagabond, and he joins us to discuss now. Derrick Broze, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's absolutely amazing to see people that have been screaming from the rooftops, like you, about fluoride in the water is finally reaching the mainstream, it seems, or at least the mainstream where independent media is concerned. What do you make of this new report?
So, this report confirms what myself and many others who've been paying attention for years have known, and that is that fluoride does indeed lower IQ in children. And this new report from the US National Toxicology Program has actually been delayed for at least 2 years that we know publicly because of influences within the Department of Health and Human Services, influences within the US CDC, and of course the American Dental Association, which is a huge lobby group for fluoride. They have been behind the scenes working to prevent the NTP scientists from releasing this data. And it's only because of this lawsuit by the Fluoride Action Network that we even knew about this report because of emails that were released through it. And those emails show that the scientists believe this report was ready to release 2 years ago in May 2022. But as I said, these different forces have prevented it from coming out. Thankfully, finally now the final version of the report is out. And as you said, it's making waves even in the mainstream.
Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely astounding to me how much effort these people go to hide the fact that something is harming populations. I mean, just last week, there was a discovery of forever chemicals that cause cancer in Australian water systems. And they were sitting on that for 2 months since they quote unquote discovered it. And you would think that something like forever chemicals causing cancer being in water for 2 months, I mean, that's a day zero announcement. But as you said, this has been going for years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been happening for years, and the for those who are not familiar, the Fluoride Action Network they sued the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in 2016 after they had filed a petition under a law called TSCA, the Toxic Substance Control Act, which allows U.S. citizens to petition the government if they believe there's evidence of something being a toxin, like you said, forever chemicals, fluoride in this case. And after the EPA denied that petition, it resulted in this lawsuit, which has now been dragging on for nearly 8 years. The first phase of the lawsuit was in summer 2020 during COVID lockdowns. It was all virtual on Zoom, but it resumed this year in February in the San Francisco courtroom. And I was there for 2 weeks in the courtroom, live tweeting, interviewing all the expert witnesses, including Dr. Bruce Lanphier, Dr. Philippe Grandjean. And these are the world's leading experts on mercury toxicity, on lead poisoning, and every single one of them is saying this is the same situation. We need to take fluoride out of the water. And the data shows that it's not just the neurodevelopmental problems, which is what this study's focused on. Of course, lowering IQ in children is a very big thing, but we also have to worry about bone problems, liver problems, kidney problems. There's potential for cancers. There's so many different problems linked to exposure to fluoride. And I did want to make the point that if anybody's seen some of the mainstream headlines out there, they're using terms like twice the recommended limit and things like that. And what the mainstream is attempting to do is have regular folks who don't really know much about this hear the news, okay, fluoride's bad, but at the same time, get the caveat that, but it's not at the current allowed limits by the US government. It's at levels that are way, way higher. But the scientists themselves in this 324-page report, buried deep in there, they say, but this does apply to the US population because people are not just being exposed to fluoride through the water that they drink and the food that they cook with fluoride water, but also fluoride is in processed foods, it's in the shower. There's so many other sources. And when you add that up, it's this cumulative effect that takes people well beyond the alleged safe amount.
Yes, alleged safe amount is the point there. I was just with Alex Jones in studio earlier this week talking about how this was, used to kill rats, I guess, 50, 60 years ago. And now they're putting it in baby formula and saying this is purified formula. I mean, it is just unbelievable, unbelievable. And you know what, Derek, this goes all the way back. I mean, I don't care what the WHO says the safe limits are. It's a way to condition the public to believe that there are safe levels of fluoride when really there are not.
I agree.
And it goes all the way back to Codex Alimentarius. The earliest documents I've read date all the way back to the 60s, where the WHO and the globalists decided, okay, we're going to declare that poisons are safe and keep increasing those levels of toxins, and declare that nutrients are actually toxins and decrease those in the food supply. And I suppose that is what brings me to the next question that I have for you, because I know that you've covered this a lot, the upcoming UN Pact for the Future. This is, we've covered this on this broadcast. I've been, screaming myself about the dangers of the UN. Talk to us about this upcoming conference that the UN is holding.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're about 30 days away from this. It's called the Summit of the Future. It's happening in New York City, September 22nd to the 23rd, and it's actually part of the larger annual UN General Assembly meeting, which is, just an annual meeting that takes place. But this year is a bit different because the World Economic Forum is going to be in New York City for what they're calling the Sustainable Development Impact meetings. The UN, of course, is having the Summit of the Future. You've also got the Club of Rome. A lot of these globalist internationalists are converging on New York City, and they're saying that this is the moment for, as part of the Great Reset, to strengthen the UN. They're talking about having a UN 2.0, strengthening the UN Charter, but more specifically, at the Summit of the Future, they're calling for signing the Pact for the Future. And the Pact for the Future, we've seen two different draft versions of it so far. We haven't seen the final version, but what we do know about it is part of the draft. It calls for an emergency platform. And this emergency platform is basically similar to the WHO's pandemic agreement that people are more familiar with, to give them more powers in the case of some alleged emergency. And of course, they talk about the polycrisis of climate change and banking, financial stuff, and war, and this and that. So really, it's an excuse to give the UN more powers to do whatever they want. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the world is not paying attention, and I include the independent media in that. There are only a few of us who are really paying attention to this, and I think it's an extremely dangerous situation, because they might, as they've talked about, they might as well declare a planetary emergency during this event. And all of the 192 member states of the United Nations are expected to sign this pact for the future, including the emergency platform and the potential declaration of a planetary emergency. And after that, all is needed is for the UN to declare that some event is as they say, a shock that impacts multiple regions of the world, and then they could initiate this so-called emergency platform. And from there, we don't know what will happen, but I definitely think this is something more people should be paying attention to, because this is about to supercharge the UN. And this is, of course, as the UN and the World Economic Forum and others are in their race to complete the Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030 within the next 5 to 6 years.
Yes, I think a lot of people don't really understand the severity of this threat. Last year, the UN passed the political declaration, even though 11 countries essentially were in opposition to it. This is in September of 2023, and that basically gave Guterres, or whoever is the head of the UN, more powers. And this emergency platform, for the viewers that are watching today, basically says that in the event of a cyber event, or any event in outer space, or a pandemic, whatever definition they choose to give it, or a climate emergency. I mean, anyone breathes in any corner of the earth, and the head of the UN essentially becomes the one world government leader. I mean, this is the essence of the emergency platform and what they're trying to achieve with the Pact for the Future. And of course, there's the technocratic aspect to this as well. So, Derrick, maybe it's worth you and I having a longer conversation about this one day, and I'm sure we'll get you back on. But I want to talk to you about your upcoming conference, and really the solution to this one world government that's towering over us.
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct that this is definitely a major step towards world government. And we've been seeing these steps since, of course, COVID 1984, with the announcement of the Great Reset in June 2020. And at that time, myself and some other activists that I collaborate with here in North America, we could feel the fear, palpable fear in the air across the freedom community. So many people were like, oh my God, we're going to own nothing. We're going to be happy. And we felt like there was a need for a solution. And we launched this event. We called it originally the Greater Reset, and we did 5 of them from 2021 until this year, January 2024. And it's essentially a 5-day event that is all solutions focused. So instead of focusing on what Klaus Schwab was doing at the World Economic Forum, we would meet at the exact same time for 5 days, but give people solutions and bring together some of the brightest minds from around the world to promote their solutions in health and growing your food, building new systems, technology, community building, etc. And it's been a huge success. It's launched this worldwide freedom solutions focused movement. Well, we're doing it again. This time we're coming to the UK. We're going to be in Bath, UK. The weekend after the UN's Summit of the Future, we're holding our summit for our future. And again, it'll be 3 days, just like their event, but similarly themed on how to grow food, how to get, land if that's what you're interested in, how to take care of your mental, physical, spiritual health. And we've got some great speakers, including Neil Oliver, Dan Aston Gregory, a lot of folks who are known in the UK, as well as we're bringing friends from the North American side. And this is just an overall effort to try to show the freedom community around the world that there are real solutions. Personally, I don't see a lot of political solutions that are going to stop what's going on. We don't think violence is the answer, and we definitely don't think that apathy and just giving up is the solution. So instead, we're trying to activate or empower people, give them real world solutions that they can take home. And so this is an in-person event in Bath, UK. People can find out at thepeoplesreset.org. But I also want to mention, as with all of our events, we stream the entire thing for free. We put out all the talks for free. We have more than 150 plus hours of solutions focused talks from our past 5 events on the Greater Reset Odyssey channel, which is linked on our website. And we will be doing the same thing. The stream, people can just show up to the website, sign up our email list, and you'll get notified when we go live. You can tune in. We encourage you to get together with friends and family in your community. Let's discuss these solutions and then actually apply them to your lives, because I believe that this is the real answer to the technocratic agenda, is us focusing on how we can get the power back in our hands and not simply just watching the clown show on the internet and living in fear or waiting for somebody else to come save us. So I encourage people to check that out. They can go to thepeoplesreset.org to learn more.
That's so amazing, Derek, and I'm in complete agreement with you. Whether there is a positive political solution that happens at any point, we should be more independent. And ultimately, one good leader is not going to be a forever leader. This is my point. Even with the upcoming US election, a lot of people are hoping that Trump will get in and he'll change things. But ultimately, even if that was the case and everything was perfect in a utopian world, in 4 years' time, that may not be the case. And so political solutions are really only ever temporary and only provide temporary relief. So this is why, it's so important for people to become more independent. So again, that website is thepeoplesreset.org. Absolutely amazing. Where can people follow you as well, Derek?
My main website is theconsciousresistance.com. I've been running the Conscious Resistance Network since 2012. People can find my podcast, my interviews, my books, my documentaries. Everything I do is based there. And of course, I'm all over social media. If you just search my name, Derrick Broze, or The Conscious Resistance, you'll find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of your work and for coming on today. We appreciate you.